Dead Scarlet is all about identity. The main character, Nora, is struggling in all aspects of her life. At home, she's having trouble communicating with her boyfriend. When she sleeps, she has a recurring dream about falling to her death. At work, her boss is giving her a hard time. And in her head, she's constantly followed by a ghost from her past, Joel. Years before the movie starts, Nora had a different identity. She was Scarlett, a young girl who got mixed up with the wrong guy and found herself breaking into houses and stealing, all to please Joel. But when we first meet this girl, she is the total opposite. She's literally giving things away, even to her detriment, as she's scolded by her boss. Nora is as far away from Scarlett as can be, not just in identity, but in surrounding. Scarlett is a red color, and the opening shot is painted with a blue tint, already separating her from her red identity, Scarlett. In the next scene, she's surrounded by green and blue again. The first hint that Scarlett will come roaring back into Nora's life is when she first gets home from work and we get our first big dose of red, the rose petals. This trail of red leads to a banner, painted in red with the name Scarlett right on it. This leads Nora to the apartment of her coworker, Cass. Nora is now fighting between her two identities, the cooler-colored Nora and the warmer-colored Scarlett. The apartment is warm, but the coloring of the scene is still in the cooler tones. The colors are fighting, just as Nora fights to keep Scarlett from coming back. Then, we reach the flashback, and we're drenched in a bloody red. It's everywhere, from the costumes to the lighting to the coloring. We're in Scarlett's world. The entire scene unfolds in one unnerving, uncut take as we experience the horror of a break-in gone wrong in real time through the eyes of Scarlett. When Nora gets back to her apartment, Scarlett is as close to taking over Nora's identity as she's ever been. So how is that reflected in this scene? With warm orange lighting and a shaky handheld camera, just like what Scarlett experienced back in the break-in scene. Then Joel comes back and does his best to bring Scarlett out from inside Nora's head. He does this in many ways. He knows her name is Nora, but he only refers to her as Scarlett. 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 And even though Nora has shed Scarlett from her life and completely turned things around, changing everything about herself so Scarlett no longer exists, Joel hasn't changed a bit. In just a few minutes, he makes so many references to the flashback scene. In both scenes, he calls her sweetheart, sweetheart. He runs his fingers through her hair and behind her ear. He grabs her by the throat. He even predicts the future. You're killing me, Scarlett. Nora can't stand to hear Joel calling her Scarlett over and over. Like she says,
I don't want to see him. I'm scared that if I see Joel, Scarlett's gonna come back.
And Joel knows that if he keeps at it, he can get her back.
I think she's still in there somewhere. I know you're in there.
They're both right. Despite Nora's protests,
Don't call me that. I told you not to call me that.
He calls her Scarlett one too many times, and something changes. Nora fights it, but back she comes. Scarlett has returned, and with her, a life of crime. Going against everything Nora stands for, she commits murder in her own home. And following Joel's lead, she does it with a knife. The only way Scarlett has ever seen a murder, so she knows it works. She knows what's best for Nora. With Joel gone, she's free to be Nora forever. Or so she thinks. Her boyfriend disapproves of the murder and leaves, even though earlier that very day he said,
Right here. I'll always be here.
And something Joel said sticks in her head as well.
I'll always be there, won't I?
We also get a nice contrast between the first and last shot of the movie. Here, she's Nora and everything is blue. And here, she sits under the shadow of Scarlett, quite literally, and everything is red. And we're left to wonder, can people really change? Nora truly believes that.
Can't change who you are, Nora.
Yes. Yes, you can. I did it.
But Scarlett re-emerging from within disproves it. So in the end, it's left up to you. Both arguments are presented. People can change and people can't change. What do you believe?